All right, we ready to give this a go here? You moved in your chair and it sounded like you farted. Okie dokie. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Team Morale Podcast, where we do our three favorite things. We talk a little bit of booze, a little bit of beer, and a whole lot of basketball. I'm here in Fort Worth, and joining me remotely from Portland, Mitch. What's going on, man? It's been a minute.
Hey, what's up? I'm in Dad's office right now, chilling in the Great Pacific Northwest.
Oh, so we are here again on another podcast. We're here to talk a little bit of our predictions, who we think is going to win the awards this year.
Yeah, it's our guesses for what's definitely going to be right by the end of the season.
Yep.
Because everyone's always correct about this.
There are 6 major events or like awards that they give out in the NBA at the end of the year. That it would be MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, Coach of the Year, Most Improved, and Rookie of the Year. We have picks for all of them. We have dark horses. We have a lot to talk about today.
Yes, and I am very excited to talk about it. But first, I think that we should talk about our drink of the day, a little Kahlua. We mixed it up and we went with a liqueur today because guess what? It's the holidays, it's Christmas season, and what goes better than a nice cup of hot chocolate?
Cheers.
I like the Steelers mug. Cheers.
Go Steelers, man.
Mm-hmm. I'm wearing my Duck shirt because the Ducks won the Pac-12 last night.
Oh, they did, yeah.
At a solid 4-2.
Oh my god.
Anyways,
yes, I also have Kahlua here. There's my bottle. We are
yes,
definitely excited to be drinking some warm hot chocolate on a cold winter day and talk some basketball.
Yeah, so little stuff about Kahlua. So Kahlua was originally created in 1936 by a guy named Pedro Dominic out of Veracruz, Mexico. And Kahlua has a very kind of coffee, vanilla kind of flavor to it. It's a little thicker. That's why it goes really well in your coffees. It goes really well in your hot chocolates. And that's why I usually mix it with hot chocolate. And it's just delicious.
Yeah, it's really good. My one complaint is I didn't heat my water up enough. And when I poured the Kahlua in, it kind of cooled it down. So it's lukewarm chocolate right now.
Oh, that's funny. So here's a little fun fact about Kahlua is that the actual word Kahlua has ties to ancient Arabic languages, and it's said to be like slang for coffee, which is why it's got like a little bit of that coffee flavor in it.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Shoe fits.
Yep.
Well, that's fun. All right. So we've talked a little Kahlua. We'll get more into it later. We'll talk more about what we're drinking. Mitch has some more facts that he'll share with us in a little bit. But let's get into these awards because we got a lot to talk about, a lot to talk through today. Our first one, we're going to start off with Defensive Player of the Year. And so my thing is I picked, and preface this, Mitch and I both have a list. We have not shared each other's list, or we haven't shared our list with each other. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of talk to each other, see where we're at, and see what we have similarities, what differences we have. Mitch, Defensive Player of the Year. We have who we think we're going to win, and we have a dark horse candidate per event.
Yes. And I also have a couple other guys that I think could be thrown in, but I have my main guy and I got my dark horse.
All right, cool. So my Defensive Player of the Year, who I have winning it this year, is a player of the Heat, Bam Adebayo. He took leaps and bounds from his second year to his third year, just went nuts, averaged over a block and a half a game, averaged over a steal a game, and was just the linchpin of the defense of the Heat.
All right, well, starting off hot here because I also have Bam Adebayo winning Defensive Player of the Year.
No way. I thought for sure I would have that one on you. I thought for sure you would go somewhere else. You really went.
I thought the same thing.
Really? Okay. That's interesting. What do you got on Bam so far?
All right. So here's my thing for Bam is that first off, he has all of the media and the entire storyline of being one of the best defensive players in the entire bubble last year and being a huge piece as to why he even made the championship and went on the run that they went on, because it was like the way that Bam played and the way that they were able to play that stretch zone, and Bam just ran around like a freak and guarded everybody at the same time. His stats aren't actually all that great. I mean, last year he averaged 1.3 blocks and 1.1 steals. So it's definitely good, but not in that like 2 blocks a game or 2 steals a game caliber that you usually hear a defensive player of the year on. But I think that all the Heat have to do is be a good team and like be like around that 4 or 5 seed. If he can get to 1.5 blocks and be over 1 steals, that's good enough stats to win a defensive player of the year. And all of the media, he's like a media darling right now. Everyone loves Bam. So I just assume that like that's kind of what's going to go into it. But I will say that my dark horse candidate is Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis, I wouldn't say he's a dark horse. He's leading.
He's not.
That's a weak dark horse. That's a weak dark. I actually have a true dark horse, and that is Mitchell Robinson of the New York Knicks.
Ooh, I did not put him down. That's a good one.
It's a dark horse because generally speaking, the defensive player of the year comes from a good team, like a playoff team, and the Knicks are just bad. Mm-hmm. But he did average over 2 blocks. He is a linchpin of their defense. He's a big part of what they do defensively. He blocks a lot of shots. He gets a lot of steals. He averaged over 2 blocks and is over a steal a game last year, and could definitely make an impact on the defensive end. And he's a guy that no one really talks about, but defensively, he's an absolute monster.
Yeah, he's definitely a big stat patter guy when it comes to blocks too. And I think the biggest issue for him winning defensive player of the year is the fact that he plays for the Knicks and they're not going to be any good.
Yeah. The defensive player of the year, like I said, generally comes from a good team, and the Knicks are just not a good team.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like as far as MVP, where MVP, if you aren't a top 1, 2, or 3 seed, you have 0 chance of winning a most valuable player of the year award. But you can win a defensive player of the year being a 4, 5, 6 seed. We kind of saw that with Gobert, for a couple years. And so I think that's why I do have Bam. Some other guys I think that we should keep an eye on is, so I had AD. He's not like a dark horse, but I think that he's the guy that if it's not Bam, he's probably going to win defensive player of the year. Obviously Giannis, he just won it last year. Gobert, 2-time winner himself. I would not be surprised to see guys like Kawhi, Marcus Smart, Covington, Draymond Green, DeJounte Murray, or Mikal Bridges get their way into the defensive player of the year category this year.
Yeah, another guy that you didn't mention that I actually have down on my list is Miles Turner. Another big man, another guy who could get a lot of blocks. Traditionally speaking, the past, 20 years, the big man has won the defensive player of the year. It's generally a big man who gets a lot of blocks. Kawhi has won it a couple years to like go for the wings, but generally speaking, it goes to a big man.
Yes, generally speaking, it does go to a big man. You have to be absolutely stellar at what you do and average minimum 2 steals a game if you're going to be a perimeter guy that's going to win the defensive player of the year. I don't think Kawhi plays enough to be in that category. I don't know if Marcus Smart is necessarily big enough or has enough clout to win a defensive player of the year, even though he is amazing. I think Covington could be a dark horse because he was in the conversation 2 years ago when he was averaging about 2 steals, about 2 blocks a game with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So if he plays really well and the Blazers are playing well, I could see him in there. And then I would not be totally stunned if the Warriors are actually playing well, and a lot of it has to do with Draymond Green and his defensive efforts.
Yeah, he's another guy that could definitely sneak in there and win it. Guy that can get steals, get blocks, can guard every position. He's definitely a great all-around defensive player, and definitely one that has the clout to win a defensive MVP.
Yeah, and then the guys who are like way off the beaten path, but maybe you start seeing their names come up in the future is DeJounte Murray with the Spurs. He's a guard. He has crazy athleticism, really long wingspan. I believe he's already been a first-team all-defensive player before. And then the other guy is Mikal Bridges, small forward for the Suns. And I believe that he will be one of the only players playing defense for the Phoenix Suns this year, if I read correctly. Be him and Chris Paul. Everyone else will just be like, that's all right. You can have a bucket. We'll go get another one on the way down.
You score 2s, we'll score 3s.
Yes, exactly. So I could see Bridges having a season where he is right around that like 2 steals mark a game and like the linchpin to the Suns defense. And I mean, who knows with the West this year, who's going to pop, but those are who I have guys that like keep your eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. And the West is stacked again. Both you and I have a player from the East winning it though. So it'll definitely be interesting. Who ends up winning it. We both have Bam. So one for one in terms of ties. Moving on to coach of the year. I have an interesting one. I'm very high on this team. And I think this team will make a big leap, which is why I think this guy will win coach of the year. I have Monty Williams of the Phoenix Suns winning coach of the year.
Ooh, I love that. Monty Williams, he's been around a lot of places. He's had a lot of stints as an assistant coach. He was the head coach for the Pelicans there for a minute. And I always thought that he was better than what his teams were performing as. And so it would not surprise me to see he now gets Chris Paul. They now have like a real basketball team that he can put together and put a real system around. And if they definitely have the talent to sneak into being a 4 seed, being a potential top 4 seed in the West, even if they just make the playoffs, you could make the argument for Monty Williams being coach of the year. So I really like that.
Yeah, and
My coach,
an underrating
go for it.
signing for them is Jay Crowder, another huge piece to that team on the Heat. Like he definitely makes a difference. I mean, the Suns are going places, and I think that Monty Williams will benefit from their GM moves, if that makes sense. Like he's a good coach. I don't know if he's good enough to win coach of the year, but I think that the roster is talented enough to where like all of a sudden like, wow, the Suns went from this to this. It's got to be something to do with the coach.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So my coach of the year is Brad Stevens. He has not won a coach of the year yet. He is one of the best coaches in the league, and he has been for a while now. And I think that if the Celtics pull out a top 2 seed, which is, not unthinkable by any stretch, that he deserves a coach of the year and that he should win a coach of the year, and that there's going to be kind of like, I don't know, a bit of a media bias for East Coast and also just liking Brad Stevens and wanting him to have a little bit more clout. So they give him coach of the year. Oh, there we go. Yeah, my dark horse is Steve Nash.
Steve Nash is an interesting one. I thought about
Steve
him for my
Nash.
dark horse actually for a little while. Fun fact: Vegas has Steve Nash as the best odds to win Coach of the Year.
No way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Really?
His odds are. Yeah, I was actually on Vegas Insider earlier today. Here, let me look it up when I was doing this. But his odds were actually really good.
That's a little bit surprising to me because I mean, the Nets are going to be good. Like you don't have to, as a coach, you kind of just show up. You're like, Kyrie, KD, go do your thing. But I think that if the Nets are to reach their maximum potential, it's going to be because Steve Nash was able to rein in Kyrie, rein in KD, allow them to kind of accept the team building a little bit more, have Joe Harris there where he's actually like using Joe Harris kind of like JJ Redick, and really like, I don't know, have the entire team play well as a cohesive unit and not just be a couple stars that are just going off and doing their own thing. So that's why I had him as my dark horse. But the fact that he's the number one candidate on the Vegas lines is kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, he is 20-1 right now.
20-1?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I mean, it makes sense. I mean,
not even that good.
None of them are that good. It's all it's all a crapshoot right now. But it's kind of crazy. I mean, he inherits a good team. It's kind of like the Steve Kerr Warriors team where it's like, well, show up and don't mess up, and your team will be good. So like, he's inheriting a great roster. He's almost a shoo-in barring an injury to make the playoffs. So like, I mean, he's not a bad pick.
No, not at all. Who's your dark horse?
My dark horse is Stan Van Gundy for the New Orleans Pelicans. Again, similar situation to where in the Suns, but I think if the Pelicans, they have a talented roster, if they could pop up and let's say, make a playoffs as like a 6 seed, everyone loves Stan Van Gundy to begin with. Like I could just see him being like, yeah, they made the playoffs.
Good point. That is a good point. And I mean, the Pelicans can make the playoffs. So kind of along those lines, I put a little note in my coach of the year thing where it's just the coach in the West that most overperforms.
And that's
whatever guy that is.
that's what I did with both of my picks. We're both like coaches in the mediocre lower half of the West that if you can pop and somehow make a 6 seed, make a 7 seed, you're like, all of a sudden you're like, wow, like this guy must have done something right.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I'm totally with you. I think that is a pretty good pick actually, because people want to like the Pelicans. People want to like Zion. People want to like what's going on in New Orleans. And if they do make it just into the playoffs, there's going to be an argument to be made that Van Gundy should be coach of the year. So I like that.
And so coach of the year, that kind of wraps that one up. Let's move on to most improved player. A very interesting award. In the running last year was Brandon Ingram, Luka Doncic. Devontae Graham was also in the running. Brandon Ingram ended up winning. Who do you have for most improved player this year?
So I think Brandon Ingram winning is totally fair. Every once in a while, you get a most improved player that jumps from 5, 6 points a game to 20, 25 points a game. That happened with Oladipo. That happened with CJ McCollum. So I don't think that it's going to be the same kind of case this year. I don't see a guy like Devonte Graham coming out of nowhere and then just being a 20-point per game star for a team. My winner is going to be SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander with the Thunder. I think that he's going to get a lot of chances to shoot, and his numbers are just going to blow up because they don't have a whole lot of go-to guys on that Thunder's team now. So that's why I have him as my most improved player.
That's interesting. I think he's a good pick. I also think that he's the only option the Thunder have, meaning he's going to be double teamed a lot. He's going to be dealing with a lot of different things. It's part of the being on the bad team. That's kind of why this most improved player award kind of goes to like a team that's like not great, not good, but like where it's a lot of second options normally that just kind of pop off kind of type thing. It's normally a award that goes from like the Robin to someone's Batman. And and that's why I have my pick, DeAndre Ayton, sticking with the Suns. I think he blows up this year playing next to Chris Paul. I think he benefits so much. I think he'll be on the end of a lot of lobs. I think he'll fit very well next to Chris Paul. Chris Paul knows how to find mismatches, and he is a walking mismatch. I think that he will definitely explode this year.
Wow, so you're a big Suns guy this year.
A
lot of awards going to Phoenix.
I have their coach, and I have their Sixth Man of the Year award, or not Sixth, Most Improved Player of the Year award.
MVP is going to go to Devin Booker.
That's next. Hold on.
Just give it a second. Okay, and then before we go into the dark horses, there's a lot of chatter about players who have been injured in recent years and have long injuries, and what does it look like for them in a case for a most improved player award? Guys that would be in that conversation are your John Wall, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin, Yusuf Nurkic, guys who have been out for like an entire season. They're kind of just coming back now. You did like guys like Nurk, you did see in the bubble, so he wouldn't be in it, but you do have like Blake Griffin, John Wall, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. They come back and they play pretty much like almost how you would expect them to play. If John Wall comes back after 2 years and averages 25 and 12, is he in a most improved category for you?
I don't think so. And the reason I say this is where the NBA needs to take a page of the NFL's playbook, and they need to have a comeback player of the year award, an award separate of everything else, where a player that's been injured comes back and plays really well. And so like it keeps people from like improving from losing out on this award, like, cause Kevin Durant, 0 points, didn't play, didn't do anything last year, can do what he normally does on a year average, high 20s, and easily win this award. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, has he improved? Not really. Like, he just is what he is. He was hurt. And that's why, in my opinion, the comeback player of the year award is what would be given to guys like that. And what should
I totally agree. I think that's actually a great idea. I haven't even thought about having a different award that's like a comeback player of the year award, because when I was doing some research, there's a lot of guys that were picking John Wall. I was like, well, if John Wall comes back and averages 25 and 12, which he very much can, is that improving, or is that just him being the exact same player after an injury? Like, it's not an improvement. So that's where I wanted to bring that up, because I kind of have an issue when people are talking about like using Blake Griffin or Kevin Durant or Steph as like a most improved player candidate.
Yeah. In my mind, I think that the most improved player is someone who takes his game from like this level, like a lower level, and then goes up a level and gets better. And like, a guy coming back from injury isn't necessarily getting better. He's just returning to where he was. And that should be not saying it's not impressive, not saying that's not award worthy, but I'm just saying that's not the most improved player award.
Yes, exactly. So for my dark horse candidate, I have a couple of guys. I went back and forth on a bunch of dudes, but I'm going to go with Michael Porter Jr. I think that he is going to pop off. I think he's going to be right in the 20 to 22 points per game range. I think he's going to average 6 to 8 rebounds. He's probably going to start for the Nuggets. He's going to get big minutes. He's going to get a lot more touches. I mean, the dude was already complaining about not touching the ball in the bubble, so you got to give him more touches. I'll go over some of the other guys I think are in the running, though, after you say your dark horse.
Yeah, so my dark horse, you're going to like it. I have Gary Trent Jr. being my dark horse most improved player. I think that he is going to pop this year. Another guy similar to DeAndre Ayton. I think he's going to get a lot more minutes. He's going to get a lot more touches. He's going to fill into his role a little bit well. I can see him kind of taking some possessions away from CJ a little bit. And I just think that Gary Trent is definitely someone who can sneakily sneak in there and win this kind of Devonte Graham fashion.
No, I love that. I totally agree because he doesn't have to average all that. Like he kind of has to do what he's doing at the end of the season to be a candidate for most improved player. So some other dudes that I saw were being batted around. There was Markelle Fultz, Jaylen Brown, Jeremy Grant, Darius Garland, Kobe White, DeJounte Murray, and one I really like that I almost chose, Marvin Bagley.
I actually have Marvin Bagley on my
Really?
if he could stay healthy.
Yes,
Yes.
that is his thing. If he can stay healthy, he can be great.
Yes, and it's different from guy missing a whole like being like gone for a year and then coming back and being the same. This guy is a guy who has been kind of nagging injuries, has been playing through them. If he could be 100% healthy and just kind of put the pieces together, I could see him popping very much as well. Another guy I have written down is Jarrett Culver, a guy who was very highly drafted, very talented player out of college, Texas Tech, very, all around player, plays good defense, can score. If he can just kind of put the pieces together in his third year, he could definitely really help a Timberwolves team and could also win this award. He's being pushed now by Anthony Edwards. So now he's got some competition in practice. I could see him really putting it together.
Yeah, I was gonna say my only problem with I love Culver. I loved him coming out of Texas Tech. I still think that he could be a really great player in the NBA, but he's not going to start, and he's not going to really be given the opportunity to start as long as they're running the Anthony Edwards thing, because Rubio will start and D'Lo will start for sure. And Culver kind of fits in that one, like you can put him at 1, 2, or 3 kind of thing, where he's really versatile. He's a really good basketball player. He plays good defense. He can get a bucket, but now I think they've already moved on from him, which is, I think, kind of sad.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Actually, really interesting thing. I was watching some of the Blazers preseason games, not Blazers, Timberwolves preseason games randomly the other day, and they weren't starting Culver or Edwards. They were starting Malik Beasley at the 3.
Oh,
shocking to me.
That's not super shocking for me, actually. I think Malik Beasley is, at least right now, the better basketball player of the 3. I will say I love me some Malik Beasley. I think he's starting to become a bit of a dummy-dumb by doing all this just like stupid stuff off the court, but he is a very good basketball player. So that doesn't totally surprise me. But yeah, it's maybe the Wolves are a little bit deeper than I was giving them credit once upon a time.
Another team that in the West that is scary. All right, so we've gone through 3 awards. We've gone through Defensive Player of the Year, we have gone through Coach of the Year, and we've gone through Most Improved. Let's take a break here. Let's talk a little bit more Kahlua. What else you got to share with us here?
All right, so here's another little fun fact for you, is that Kahlua is actually, when it was originally created, which was around 1940 when it actually started coming to America, it was run by all females. Like it was a female-led organization that like had the whole creative content for everything that was Kahlua, which, back in the 1940s, that was relatively unheard of. And so it's kind of a cool thing that they were trendsetters in that way.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I mean, progressive and nice to see women getting opportunities and stuff like that. On the back of my bottle here, it actually has a recipe for a pitcher of mudslide, which I'm not entirely sure what mudslide is, but it says step 1, fill a blender with ice. Step 2, add 1.5 cups of Kahlua. Holy cow. That's a lot of Step 3, blend for 45 to 50 seconds. Step 4, add more Kahlua if you want. So basically, it's just Kahlua and ice if you want to make a mudslide.
Oh, that's funny. They have different ingredients for a White Russian, which is Kahlua, vodka, and some heavy cream. Ooh, that could do some damage to some people. They got an espresso martini and something called the Eraser, which I'm sure if I am having a rough night, might want to try the Eraser out.
The Eraser. That is
the Eraser.
I don't know how I feel about if I were going to be drinking an Eraser.
I'm going to stick with hot chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, so I was going to go into how I made my hot chocolate. For those of you that like to do it kind of like Ethan or apartment style, how I usually do it is you just get the packet, get the water, put it in the microwave, warm it up, toss the packet in. So for this, I got my milk, whole milk, put it in a pan, got it nice and warm just before bubbling, so it was nice and hot, and then put the milk inside of another little side glass, and then I just like do little bits of hot chocolate that come out of like a fancy little glass container and just do like a spoonful and a spoonful, a little bit more glass, a little more spoonful, until I just like got this perfect like milky hot chocolate. And then I just put a whole crap ton of Kahlua on top of it. And if you want a good cup of hot chocolate for your Christmas morning, that's what I would go with.
That sounds actually really good. Mine was warm water, half a packet of the pre-made stuff, and then I poured in Kahlua. But the Kahlua, again, like I said earlier, was cold, so it kind of made it lukewarm chocolate.
But it's still good, right?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. The Kahlua, I'm actually like, I'm empty. I'm done with my hot chocolate now, so I have to go make more at some point. But it's actually pretty good. I enjoyed it. I like Kahlua. I don't know if I'd ever drink a mudslide or an eraser or anything, but I put it in my hot chocolate.
Yeah,
Coffee.
absolutely. It's good in hot chocolate, good in coffee, good for White Russians, all sorts of stuff. And we're going to be bringing more holiday themed drinks to you over the next couple pods.
Yes, Christmas themed, holiday themed. We're all here every time. It's holiday season. It's cold. Some warm stuff to
best drinks ever.
Yeah, holiday cocktails actually. So let's jump back into this actually. So we're moving on to our fourth category, which is the Sixth Man of the Year award. Mitch, what do you got?
All right. So Sixth Man of the Year award. I went back and forth as to who I thought was going to win this, because I have one guy who I think is a pretty wild card that people aren't thinking about, but I'm going to go with the mainstay who I really think is going to win Sixth Man of the Year, which is Montrezl Harrell. He won it last year with the Clippers. He's going to be coming off the bench with the Lakers. He's going to be able to average, 18 to 20, because he's going to be able to get a lot of shots up there in that second unit, I think. And people, they're going to want to give awards to the Lakers because they're going to be they're the reigning champs. They're going to be the number one seed, barring some sort of injury or whatever. And I think that Trez is the most likely to win that award, because I actually think Schroeder's going to end up starting.
I would agree that Schroeder ends up starting. God, I do not want Trez to win this award.
I don't want him to win either. It's just what I think is going to happen.
That is fair. It's upsetting, but true. He's definitely going to get up a lot of shots. He's going to average around 20. He's going to do basically what he did on the Clippers, just in another uniform. I actually have an interesting pick here that I don't know if you've thought of. I have Danilo Gallinari, who, as of now, the Hawks have not started him. So if he's coming off the bench, he's another guy that could average, 20 plus and really just put in buckets. I mean, the Sixth Man of the Year award generally goes to a high scoring, usually guard, but every once in a while a big will win it, like last year. And that comes off the bench, obviously. And I think Gallo can continue the trend of bigs winning it by a big coming off and just scoring a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially in a team that's going to be so fast paced and chuck up as many threes as what the Hawks are going to do next year. I didn't even have him on my list for potential guys. So I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, I think he's going to do well. I also think that he is going to get a lot of opportunity. That second unit is going to be him. It's going to be, the offense is going to run through him, and he's just going to be able to cook a lot of backup bigs.
Yeah, and he loves to shoot. I think Gallo's biggest problem that he's going to run into is his own health. If he can play a little bit less minutes coming in off the bench, but still be able to go put up 18, it's going to put him right there in that Sixth Man of the Year race. So that's a good pick.
Absolutely. Who do you have for your dark horse?
All right. So my dark horse, so far in this preseason, they have not started him. And it's a little surprising to me, and that is Karis LeVert with the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Nets are going to be kind of like the Hawks, very high scoring, shoot a ton of threes, get a lot of buckets. And if Karis LeVert's coming off the bench, putting up that, kind of like what we're talking about with Danilo, you putting up 15 to 20, right in that range, and is efficient, and the Nets are going to be good. I think that puts him right in that area. Who's your dark horse?
My dark horse, he's an absolute microwave off the bench. I have Jordan Clarkson. I've talked about him earlier on the podcast about how I think he will win a Sixth Man of the Year award before he retires. And I think this is as good a year as any. I think he could definitely push for one. He's a guy that could also average 20 off the bench, high teens, low 20s off the bench. And really just, he's not necessarily efficient, but for a volume scorer, he's more efficient than you think.
Yeah, no, I remember looking at some of his percentages last year. I was like, oh, wow, you're not terrible. Like, I kind of thought that they were just going to be big numbers because the Jazz were going through so many injury woes, losing Bojan, Ingles taking a step back. And he kind of just, and Conley not playing as well as they assumed that he would be. He stepped in as soon as he showed up to Utah and was just getting buckets and off the bench. And I thought it was just a very low efficiency, but no, he was shooting the ball really well. So on my list of guys that I think that we should keep an eye on when it comes to the 6 man of the year race, Clarkson was near the top of the list. Other guys that I think that we should, keep your side eye going on him. Will Barton, he doesn't start for the Nuggets, and he is an absolute microwave, total electricity guy.
He has made it known that he should be starting for the Nuggets. He is very unhappy about the idea of coming off a bench. I can see him, a guy demanding a trade at some point here in the near future.
I would not be stunned to see them have to part ways either with Barton or Michael Porter, because both of them want to start and both of them want to get up shots. So something's going to have to give there. So Will Barton, and then I've got JJ Redick, who is coming off the bench right now, and he's going to do exactly what JJ Redick does for the last 18 years of his basketball playing career, which is show up and make a whole bunch of threes. And especially with the Pelicans who need that spacing, he could have some pretty good numbers this year. Can never count out Lou Will. You always got to have Lou Will in this conversation. So basically, we didn't pick him.
He is he is the 6 man.
Yes, he's the ultimate 6 man. And then I've got Brandon Clark, who I don't think is going to put up big stats, but is like a really effective player for like a really big player for the Grizzlies. And then I've got Dragic and Melo, a couple older guys coming off the bench that will probably get some buckets.
Yeah, I can see all those guys. I think this is definitely an award that's going to go to basically the highest scoring bench player this year. I mean, it's going to be the guy who can effectively put up 20 points.
Yes. If a guy can go and put up 20 points a game, it could just be an arms race of whoever averages the most points per game off the bench.
Which unfortunately screams Montrezl Harrell.
Yes, which is kind of why I leaned towards old Montrezl Harrell, your favorite big man in the NBA.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk some newcomers. Let's talk some rookies. I'll just go straight into mine because I don't think you have this guy. I have Lamelo Ball winning Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to have the keys. I think he's going to put up a lot of points. I don't think he's going to be necessarily efficient, but the Rookie of the Year award isn't necessarily based on efficiency.
But he doesn't start. He's not going to get enough minutes. I get that they might just give him the keys and let him do his own thing, but I don't know. I don't want him to win it, so I'm going to make up excuses why he shouldn't win it.
He will be starting by the end of the year. He might not start at the beginning of the year, but come the end of the year, he will be a starting point guard for the Hornets.
I don't know. I mean, I think they're pretty committed to starting Graham and Rozier unless one of them takes a significant step back, or if they're like, oh my God, LaMelo is the guy. We need to clear some space and move him into the starting lineup. That could definitely happen. And
as much as you don't want LaMelo to be the guy, he's a very talented player who might be the guy.
Yeah, he can really pass the ball. He loves him a good fancy pass.
Yes, he does. He had in his first game, he had 4 or 5 where I was like, oh my gosh, holy guacamole, this guy can really see the court.
And of 4 or 5 of those, there was 3 or 4 of them where I was like, you could have just done a normal bounce pass and it would have had the exact same amount of effectiveness than what your whoop-de-doo behind the back did.
But it's not as fun.
It's not as fun. And I love me the fundamentals.
The 6 man of the year award also goes, or not 6 man, the Rookie of the Year award also goes to a player that's generally in the spotlight. And yes. LaMelo's going to have the spotlight.
Yes. I think that LaMelo is probably the guy in prime position because it's another one of those things. These are media awards. He's loved by the media. He's a very outspoken, charismatic kid. I mean, he's had the camera shoved in his face since he was 12 years old. So he knows how to be in front of the cameras, and it would not surprise me if he won Rookie of the Year. That being said, I am not going to pick LaMelo Ball. And I'm going to go with Killian Hayes out of Detroit. I think that he is going to have as much leash as anyone, any of these rookies coming into the league this year. He's going to be able to put up a whole bunch of shots because who on the Pistons really is going to be your isolation guy? I mean, they brought in Jeremy Grant to maybe be that guy, but I don't know if he actually can do that. And so go for it.
That's another guy who's going to get the keys. That's another guy that's going to be like, hey, you want to go have 8 turnovers and 3 assists and score 20 points? Sure. Why not? Go do it.
Exactly.
Good anyways.
Exactly. And so that's why I think that he will win Rookie of the Year, because he is going to end up putting up big stats on a bad team. Now, do you have a dark horse candidate?
I do. And I have a weird feeling that you and I might have the same dark horse. We'll have to see. I have Devin Vassell, whoever it
It's
is.
a good one. It's
The
not
Spurs
mine, but
guy.
it's a good one.
The Spurs guy. He's a Spurs guy, and Pop loves himself a Spurs guy, and he's just a Spurs guy. It's
He's
just
a Spurs guy.
he's a lunch pail. Bring your lunch pail. I'm gonna play a hard nosed defense. I'm gonna take good shots. I'm just gonna go to work and go home type of guy.
Yes, and the Spurs might be better than we're giving them credit for. I mean, it's still a Popovich coach team that still has DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus, and some good young talent. And Vassell is really like the go-to three there. He's going to be their starting small forward, and like you said, he's a good defender. Could have good defensive rating stats, and then also it was a high volume, high percentage 3-point shooter in college. So if that translates, I could absolutely see him coming and sneaking in to win a Rookie of the Year. My dark horse is going to be Halliburton.
That's
Tyrese Halliburton.
Arguably the steal of the draft, Tyrese.
Yes. Yeah, I think that he's 6'5". He's going to play shooting guard. I think that him coming into a situation where he doesn't have to be the lead ball handler and he can be the secondary playmaker and hit like open threes that comes off of De'Aaron Fox driving into the lane is going to fit his style a lot more than if he was like the guy on a bad team. So I see him fitting really well into that Kings system. I think that he's long. He's going to play good defense. And I think he's going to have pretty decent stats because someone on the Kings is going to have to score points outside of just Fox and Buddy Hield. And whether that's Bagley or whether that's Halliburton, someone's going to have to step up. And if it is Halliburton, I can see him winning the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very talented for a guy who went outside of the top 10. Mm-hmm. Again, like I said earlier, arguably the steal of the draft.
Yes. And real quick, other guys that we should watch this year, there's a ton of fun rookies. So Obi Toppin out of New York, if he is starting, if he is playing, he's playing pretty well in the preseason. He could be a guy. James Wiseman out of Golden State, if he's starting for them and the potential playoff team, he could be really exciting. Obviously, the number one pick in the draft, Anthony Edwards, always has a chance of winning Rookie of the Year when you're the number one pick in the draft. Isaac Okoro, Cole Anthony, and Avdia are the other guys I have on this list.
Another guy that I'm not sure if he qualifies as a rookie, but is worth mentioning here is Bol. Actually,
I think he does. I think I saw something that they're going to register him as a rookie this year.
So he's a guy that, I mean, from what I've heard, he's not going to play a ton, but if he, for some reason, pops, you never know. A guy, it's a weird rule in the NBA where, like, technically you can play X amount of games and still be a rookie, but it happened with Ben Simmons, and it's happened with a couple of other guys who have been hurt. Blake Griffin did it. So it could be a guy like Bol could come in and be like, yeah, I've kind of figured this NBA thing out. I took my year, I took some lumps, and now I've kind of figured out my role here. And you never know, he could pop too. That's a guy who is a walking mismatch.
I've been watching a decent amount of Nuggets preseason games because the last two came against the Blazers, and they absolutely just walloped on us. And Bol got a lot of run, and he's a guy that just like, it doesn't seem like it should work. It looks like it's two people, like one on another person's shoulders running around there. Like his legs and his arms go for absolute ever. And he knocks down these fadeaway threes, and everything he does looks awkward, but it kind of just works. And so it depends. Yeah, it depends on how much run the Nuggets actually give him this year, because I've heard everything from maybe he's their backup center to maybe he ends up starting at power forward to he could be playing a little small forward with them.
7'1" small forward.
Yeah.
What have we gone to, people? Have we gone too far? Have we gone too far, NBA? What is happening right now?
What is the limit? What is the limit? Is he the next Kevin Durant? No, it's definitely not. But it's fun to think about.
We've got one more award to talk. It's the crown jewel. It's the MVP. Mitch, who do you have?
All right. The most valuable player award. Now, I would be a bad Blazer fan not to mention that Damian Lillard has got a chance, and he's absolutely, I'm just going to go straight for he's my dark horse. But the guy who I think is going to win MVP this year is one Luka Doncic.
I also have Luka Doncic winning MVP.
As a good Mavs fan, you should have Luka Doncic winning MVP. I think that there's a couple of pieces to this recipe that Doncic is cooking up right now for his MVP campaign. Number one is that Giannis has now won 2 years in a row. People do not like the media does not like voting a guy to win 3 years in a row.
Voter
Last
fatigue
time,
is real. Voter
yes.
fatigue is very real. I mean, there were in the like mid 2010s, LeBron should have won MVP like 8 years in a row, and he didn't because of voter fatigue.
Yeah, I mean, he's been the best player in the league for a long time. And it's all about storylines and voter fatigue. And the last time that there was a back to back to back MVP winner was in the 80s with Larry Bird. And a piece of that was the fact that he was winning championships at the time. Giannis has not proved anything in the playoffs. I think people are really, really tired of the Giannis thing, which is why he won't win a DPOY and he won't win an MVP. So that is the first part to the Luka thing. Second part is that he is this like anomaly of a European guy who is really fascinating. He's been balling since he was a kid, and he is going to put up absolute bonkers stats this year. He's going to be in the 30 point per game range. He's probably going to be right around 10 rebounds and 10 assists, potentially doing another 30, 10 and 10, kind of like Russell Westbrook did. I don't know how many wins it's going to lead to. And I honestly think that this is one of the weird years where the Mavericks don't have to be a 1, 2, or 3 seed for Luka to win MVP.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's kind of talking. You talked about storylines, and everyone's kind of talking the storyline about how Luka's the next LeBron, and like how Giannis is the next Shaq. Like Luka, the torch being passed from LeBron to Luka, like Luka winning an MVP. I mean, the numbers are there. Like in the bubble, in the playoffs last year against the Clippers of all teams, like the best defensive team in the league, he averaged 31 points a game, 8.7 assists and 9.8 rebounds. So almost a 30-point triple double against Paul George, Kawhi, Pat Bev, Marcus. I mean, you argue like three of those guys should have been all, not necessarily all defensive first team, but all defensive team type guys. Like, and he's putting up those bonker numbers. Like, he is definitely a guy who can have the stats to back it up. I agree with you that it's just him winning it will depend on how good the Mavs are. Because if the Mavs sneak in as like an 8 seed or they miss the playoffs, Luka's not winning MVP.
If you don't make the playoffs, absolutely not. But I think that even if you are a 7 or 8 seed and Luka has the best stats and the best storyline, and people are like, and the media just keeps pushing like Luka needs to win MVP, Luka needs to win MVP, Luka needs to win MVP, then Luka will end up winning it, like despite all of that. So outside of Luka, obviously I chose my dark horse as Dame just because why not? I need to have some Blazer. I got to vote for some Blazer in here, and he could go off for 30 a game. And if we play really well, then he's got a good storyline and I could see it. But that's my dark horse. I'll go over some of the other guys that we should talk about, but who's yours?
I have two, and
okay.
One of them being Nikola Jokic. Mm-hmm. If the Nuggets somehow get the 2 seed or maybe even get the 1 seed, the Lakers decide not to try in the regular season. You know, LeBron being like, it's a shortened season. We'll sneak in and we'll do whatever. I mean, Jokic leading a 1 seed or a 2 seed could really, really put up some good numbers and definitely have a definite say in whether or not he wins an MVP. And then my other guy is Steph Curry. He is going to be shooting the ball every single time he can. And I could see this being a year where Steph averages 35, 38, something crazy like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, on the Steph thing, he is going to shoot the ball a lot this year. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of guys that he can really rely on, where you don't rely on Wiggins like you can, obviously, Clay. You don't rely on Oubre. You've never been able to rely on Draymond as a shooter. And now you're bouncing between Marquise Chris, Wiseman, and Kevon Looney as your other starter. So it's like, who's Steph Curry looking at on the court when he dribbles the ball up towards half court? He's looking at everyone else on his team. He's like, nah, I'm just going to shoot it. I'm just going to run around for a minute and then take a crazy shot, and it's going to be a better percentage shot of any of you taking a wide open shot.
I would take a Steph Curry double team fadeaway 3 over an Andrew Wiggins wide open 3, and I don't think I'm the only one that'll say that.
Yeah, and I think Steph Curry's probably thinking the exact same thing, and he's going to go into straight backpack mode this year. So I think he absolutely is going to be a guy talked about towards winning an MVP. The Nikola Jokic thing, I love Jokic's game. I think especially if he can average a 25-point triple-double, if he can get his assists at 10 or 11, keep his rebounds right around 10 or 11, and the Nuggets do have that 1 seed, I think 100% that it's Jokic's MVP to lose at that point. Some other guys that I wanted to mention that obviously Giannis is going to have a chance. I mean, he's the back-to-back winner, but voter fatigue makes us think that he probably shouldn't, which is a lame reason not to give a guy an MVP. I'm going to throw that out there right now.
If he's the best player, he should be the best player. Like, again, similar to the thing that happened to LeBron, like LeBron should have more MVPs than he had. Kobe should have had more MVPs than he had. Kobe only had one. And it's crazy to me that he only had one. So it's just like voter fatigue is real and people get tired of seeing the same name over and over and over again, for sure.
Yes. So Giannis absolutely needs to be talked about. LeBron needs to be talked about. Him and Anthony Davis both. Like, I think that they kind of are going to take votes from each other. It's like, oh, you can't vote for LeBron because he has Anthony Davis on his team, and vice versa with Anthony Davis. So they're going to lose a lot of votes that way. But I mean, they're two of the top 5 players in the NBA right now. Then you also have guys like Kawhi. If Kawhi actually, like, I don't know, cares a little bit during the regular season, maybe he can win an MVP. KD, Kevin Durant is still Kevin Durant. He comes back and he plays well. He's an MVP guy. He always has been an MVP guy. And then I also want to put out there Embiid and Jason Tatum, a couple of youngins that are right there, and their teams are already good and they already get fat stats, and they just kind of need like that extra bump. I don't know what that is, but they need a little something extra.
They need to pay their dues. It's one of those things where young guys don't normally get it. That's why Luka getting consideration and Giannis actually winning it is as crazy as it is. Normally goes to an older guy. Another guy that we should probably talk about here is Russell Westbrook. If he kind of fits in with his new team and can average that crazy 30-point triple-double like he did a couple of years ago, I mean, how could you not give it to him? I mean, wherever Harden ends up, he's another guy that could just really go nuclear and for a year, and just, especially if he's on a team where he's like, well, you know, I'm in the middle of nowhere and I don't care. I might as well shoot the ball every single time.
I am kind of done with the Harden thing. I think that even if he comes back to the Rockets and plays with them, or say, I mean, I guess if he gets traded to the Sixers, then he will go back to having a chance. But I don't think that people are going to take him seriously as an MVP candidate going forward. Just almost not even voter fatigue, but just like fatigue of James Harden. Just be like, oh, God, James, we're tired of you.
We're sick of your bullshit, man.
Yeah, we're done. We're done, James Harden. No more MVP votes for you. I don't know. He's still really good and obviously needs to be talked about. But I think that majority of NBA fans and media are a little bit done with the James Harden experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we both have Luka winning MVP. We both had Bam winning DPOY. We disagreed on everything else. We opened and closed with agreeing. But yeah, that is our awards races wrapping up the end of the off season here. Next pod, I think will be, 2 pods from now will be season starting, right?
No, our next pod will be because the first games are on the 22nd.
Oh,
our next pod is going to release on Wednesday.
I'm such a Mavs fan. I'm like, oh, Mavs don't play on the 23rd. We're fine. Yes, so the pod will be basketball. So this is our last off-season pod. Exciting stuff. We talked awards races. I definitely want to give a shout out to my boy Garrett. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you. We're going to try to give shout outs to people that we know are listening to us. So thanks for watching, Garrett, or listening, wherever you're doing.
Thanks, Garrett. Never met you, but you sound like a great guy.
But yeah, that is our awards races pod with Kahlua. We drank some lukewarm chocolate, or at least I did, and had some
beautifully warmed up milk Kahlua hot chocolate. You should do it my way. It's much better.
Well, man,
thanks, Kahlua.
Thanks, Kahlua. Thanks for joining us. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you guys. Hit us up on our socials as always. Let us know what you think. If you have any requests, hit us up. That's another one done, man. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.
Clink.
Clink.